Captain Yoon stared at the communication screen with growing worry. 3 weeks had passed since the last message from the Zephyrian colony on Kepler 442b. 3 weeks of complete silence from a place that usually sent daily reports about their mining operations. The Zephyrians were not the type to go quiet. They were a careful people who lived in the water and always followed rules. Their colony on Kepler 442b was one of their most important mining sites. It produced rare metals that many species needed for their technology. The colony had over 40,000 Zephyrians living and working there. Yoon walked across the bridge of his ship, the Harmony's Edge. His crew was busy checking systems and running scans. They were part of the Galactic Peacekeeping Force, and their job was to patrol the outer areas of known space. Most of the time, their work was boring. They checked on trading ships, helped lost vessels, and made sure pirates stayed away from important routes. But today was different. Today they had received something that made everyone on the bridge feel cold inside. "Captain," said Officer Jin from her station, "the automated distress signal is still broadcasting. Same message, repeating every 10 minutes. Yoon nodded and listened to the message again. It was short and simple, but it made his skin crawl every time he heard it. The voice was clearly Zephyrian, speaking in their liquid, flowing language. But the translator made the words clear and terrible. Colony overrun. Hostile contact. Send immediate assistance, that was all. Just those 7 words repeated over and over. No details about who or what had attacked them. No information about how many survivors there might be. Just a desperate call for help that had been echoing through space for weeks. "How long until we reach the system?" Yoon asked. 6 hours at current speed, replied Navigator Lee. "But Captain, our long-range sensors are picking up some strange readings." Yoon moved to Lee's station and looked at the data. What he saw made his stomach turn. The energy signatures coming from the Kepler 442b system were unlike anything in their databases. There were massive power readings that didn't match any known Zephyrian technology. More disturbing were the debris fields that their sensors detected in orbit around the planet. "Those debris fields," Yoon said quietly. "Are they what I think they are?" Lee checked his readings twice before answering. "Yes, Captain. They match the signatures of Zephyrian orbital stations. All of them." The Zephyrians had built 3 large orbital stations around Kepler 442b. These stations served as docking points for ships, processing centers for mined materials, and homes for thousands of workers. If all 3 stations were now debris fields, it meant something terrible had happened. "Speed up our approach," Yoon ordered, "and send a message to Galactic Command. Tell them we have a potential extinction event at Kepler 442b. As the Harmony's Edge moved faster toward the system, more disturbing information came from their sensors. The planet's surface showed energy readings that were completely wrong. There were large structures that had not been there in the last survey, which was only 6 months ago. These structures were huge, much bigger than anything the Zephyrians would build. "Captain," called out Communications Officer Park, "I'm trying to contact the colony directly, but there's no response, not even from their emergency systems." Yoon felt a chill run down his spine. Zephyrian emergency systems were designed to work even if everything else failed. They were powered by backup sources that could last for months. If those systems were not responding, it meant either they had been destroyed or something was blocking all communications. When they finally entered the Kepler 442b system, what they found was worse than anyone had imagined. The orbital stations were completely destroyed. Pieces of metal and frozen bodies floated in space like a graveyard. The stations had not just been damaged in a fight, they had been torn apart with incredible force. "Scan for survivors," Yoon ordered, though he already knew what they would find. "No life signs in the debris fields," reported Medical Officer Kim after several minutes of scanning. "But Captain, you need to see what's on the planet's surface." The main screen showed an image of Kepler 442b that made everyone on the bridge go silent. The planet had been changed. Where there used to be Zephyrian mining facilities and underwater cities, there were now massive black structures. These structures were clearly not built by the Zephyrians. They were dark, angular, and gave off energy readings that made the ship's computers issue warning alerts. "Those structures," whispered Officer Jin. "They're not just buildings. Look at their design." Yoon studied the structures more carefully. Jin was right. These were not simple buildings or even military bases. They were something else. The way they were positioned, The energy they gave off, the materials they seemed to be made from. Everything about them suggested they were weapons. Huge weapons pointed not at the planet below but outward toward space. "How many structures are there?" Yoon asked. 12 large ones, Lee reported. "Each one is about the size of our biggest space stations. And Captain, they're all active. Whatever built them is still there." Yoon made a decision that would change everything. "Send an immediate priority message to the Galactic Council. Tell them that Kepler 442b has been completely taken over by an unknown hostile force. Tell them the entire Zephyrian colony has been destroyed and there are no survivors. Tell them whatever did this is still there, and it has built weapon platforms that could threaten other systems." As the message was sent through quantum communication channels, Yoon continued to stare at the images of the destroyed orbital stations and the alien structures on the planet. 43,000 Zephyrians had lived and worked in this system. Now they were all dead, and something else had taken their place. "Captain," said Park from the communication station, "should we move closer to investigate?" Yoon thought about it for a long moment. His ship was well armed and had good shields, but whatever had destroyed 3 orbital stations and wiped out an entire colony was clearly more powerful than anything he had ever faced. "No," he said finally. "We stay at a safe distance and keep watching. Our job now is to make sure the Council knows what happened here, and to warn them if whatever did this tries to leave the system." As the Harmony's Edge took up a monitoring position at the edge of the system, Yoon could not shake the feeling that they were watching something much worse than a simple attack. This looked like the beginning of something bigger, something that could threaten the entire galaxy. The distress signal continued to broadcast its simple, terrible message. "Colony, overrun. Hostile contact. Send immediate assistance," but there was no one left to assist. There was only the warning that something new and deadly had arrived in their part of the galaxy, and it was building weapons to spread further. The great chamber of the Galactic Council had never been so quiet. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their special seats, each designed for their unique body types. The chamber was built to handle many different forms of life, from the gas-breathing Netherians to the crystalline vortex. But today, despite all their differences, every species in the room shared the same emotion: fear. Admiral Kang stood at the center of the chamber, her uniform showing the medals of 30 years of service in the Centaurian Defense Fleet. She had seen many battles and handled many crises, but her face was pale as she looked at the assembled representatives. "Fellow council members," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. "I must report the complete destruction of Zephyrian Colony 779 on Kepler 442b. Population, 43,000 civilians and researchers. Status of survivors, none detected." The silence that followed was heavy and terrible. In the 300 years since the Galactic Council had been formed, no member species had suffered such a complete loss. There had been accidents, natural disasters, and even some small conflicts, but nothing like this. An entire colony wiped out without warning. Representative Maul of the Zephyrian people rose from his water-filled chamber. His blue skin seemed darker than usual, and his large eyes held a sadness that touched everyone in the room. "Admiral Kang," he said, his voice bubbling through the water and translated into common speech. "Are you certain there are no survivors? No one in hiding? No escape pods that might have reached other systems?" Kang's expression became even more serious. "I'm sorry, Representative Mole. Captain Yoon's ship has been monitoring the system for 18 hours. Their sensors are very advanced. If there were any Zephyrian life signs anywhere in the system, they would have found them." She activated the holographic display in the center of the chamber. Images appeared showing the destroyed orbital stations and the alien structures on the planet's surface. Gasps and sounds of shock came from all around the chamber as the representatives saw the destruction. "These are the remains of your 3 orbital stations," Kang continued. "As you can see, they were not just damaged. They were completely destroyed with a level of force that our weapons experts cannot explain." Commander Lee of the Andromedan Strategic Response Division stepped forward. He was tall and thin, with the pale skin and large head typical of his species. His people were known throughout the galaxy for their tactical thinking and military planning. "The analysis of the attack patterns shows something very disturbing," Lee said, manipulating the holographic display to show tactical data. "Whatever attacked the colony did not fight a normal battle. They eliminated all defenses instantly, without any sign of resistance from the Zephyrian forces. This statement caused worried murmurs throughout the chamber. The Zephyrians were not a military species, but their defensive systems were very advanced. Their shields and weapons were designed by some of the best engineers in the galaxy. For an enemy to destroy them so easily meant they were facing something far beyond normal military capabilities. The energy signatures from the planet's surface, Lee continued, show technology that is not in any of our databases. These structures are not just bases or fortifications. Our analysis suggests they are weapons, very large weapons. Representative Thek of the Altarian Republic, a species known for their diplomatic skills, spoke up. Commander Lee, do we have any idea who or what built these structures? Are they from a known hostile species? No, Lee replied grimly. The technology, the materials, the construction methods, none of it matches anything we know. This appears to be a completely unknown enemy. The debate that followed was intense but frightened. Some representatives wanted to send the combined fleets of the Council to investigate and possibly attack the alien structures. Others argued that they should try to communicate with whatever had taken over the planet. A few suggested that they should simply avoid the system and hope the threat would not spread. Representative Zara of the Vegan Confederacy, whose people were known for their wisdom, stood to speak. Friends, we are facing something that has destroyed an entire colony without any warning or communication. This enemy built weapon platforms in the ruins of our friends' homes. What does this tell us about their intentions? It tells us they are preparing for more attacks, said Admiral Kang. The positioning of those structures, the way they point outward toward space rather than at the planet, everything suggests this was not a raid or a random attack. This was the first step in a larger plan. As the representatives continued to debate, an alert signal came through the chamber's communication system. The signal was for priority messages from outside the Council's normal channels. Such interruptions were very rare and meant something important was happening. The voice that came through the speakers surprised everyone. It was speaking in basic Galactic Common, but with an accent that few recognized. This is Captain Park of the Earth vessel Indomitable. We have received your distress signals regarding the situation at Kepler 442b. We are currently en route to provide assistance. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Earth was a small planet in a system called Sol, home to a species called humans. The humans had only recently developed faster than light travel, and were not even members of the Galactic Council. They had made contact with the galactic community only 5 years ago, and most species considered them to be friendly but primitive. Ambassador Cho, the only human representative to the Council, stood up from her small section of the chamber. She was shorter than most species present, with brown skin and black hair. Her people were one of the youngest spacefaring races in the galaxy, and she often felt out of place among the ancient civilizations around her. Honored Council members, she said, I must explain that my people received the distress signals when they were broadcast on open channels. When humans hear a call for help, we respond. It is not something we choose to do. It is something we must do. Admiral Kang looked confused. Ambassador Cho, with respect, your species has very limited military capabilities. Our analysis shows that your largest warships are equivalent to our patrol boats. The enemy that destroyed the Zephyrian colony could eliminate your entire fleet without significant effort. Cho's expression remained calm, but there was something in her eyes that made several representatives feel uncomfortable. Admiral, I appreciate your concern for our safety, but you must understand that humans do not measure the need to help others by our chances of success. When someone is in danger, we go to help them. That is who we are. Representative Maul spoke up, his voice filled with gratitude despite his grief. Ambassador Cho, while we appreciate your people's generous offer, we cannot ask you to sacrifice yourselves for a colony that is already lost. You are not asking us, Cho replied simply. We are choosing to go. Commander Lee tried to explain the tactical situation. Ambassador, our best military analysis suggests that whatever destroyed the Zephyrian colony is using technology far beyond anything in Council records. Your ships would not survive contact with this enemy. What the Council members did not know was that Captain Park's ship was not alone. As they debated in the safety of the Council chamber, the entire Earth Defense Force was moving toward Kepler 442b. Every human warship that could make the journey was heading to the system. They had also called in favors from the few alien species that had become allies of humanity. though those allies had tried to talk them out of the mission. "I understand your analysis," Cho said to the council, "but there is something you must understand about my people. We have spent our entire history facing things that were stronger, faster, and more dangerous than us. We are still here because we learned that sometimes the only way to survive is to fight, even when victory seems impossible." The session continued for another hour, with representatives trying to convince the humans to stay away from Kepler 442b. But Ambassador Cho remained firm. Her people were already on their way, and nothing would stop them from responding to the distress call. As the emergency session ended, many representatives left the chamber feeling more worried than when they had arrived. Not only were they facing an unknown enemy that had wiped out an entire colony, but now a primitive species was heading directly into danger. What none of them realized was that they were about to discover something about humanity that would change how the entire galaxy viewed the friendly species from Sol. They were about to learn that there was a difference between being primitive and being harmless, and that difference would terrify them more than the alien threat ever could. The emergency session of the Galactic Council continued through the night cycle of Nexus Prime. Representatives who normally would have returned to their quarters remained in the chamber, too worried to sleep. The destruction of the Zephyrian colony was bad enough, but now they faced the possibility that a young species might sacrifice itself in a hopeless rescue attempt. Ambassador Cho sat quietly in her section, reading reports on her personal communicator. The other representatives occasionally looked at her with expressions of pity and concern. They saw her as representing a brave but foolish species that did not understand the reality of what they were facing. What they could not see were the messages she was receiving from Earth Command. The human response to the crisis was far larger than anyone in the Council imagined. Every military vessel Earth had built was heading toward Kepler 442b. Ships were being pulled from patrol duties in the Sol system, from escort missions with trading partners, and even from the defensive perimeter around Earth itself. Admiral Kang approached Cho during a break in the session. "Ambassador, I must ask you to reconsider. Our latest intelligence shows that the alien structures on Kepler 442b are not just weapons, they appear to be factories. Whatever destroyed the colony is building more weapons, more ships, more of whatever technology they use. Your people would be flying into a trap." Cho looked up from her communicator with an expression that made Kang step back slightly. "Admiral, do you have children?" The question surprised Kang. "Yes, I have 2 daughters. If your daughters were trapped in a burning building, and someone told you that the building was too dangerous to enter, that you would probably die if you tried to save them, what would you do?" Kang was quiet for a moment. "I would go into the building, even if you knew you would probably die." "Yes. Even if someone told you that your death would not save your daughters, that they were probably already dead?" Kang's voice became softer. "Yes, I would still try," Cho nodded. "Then you understand why my people are going to Kepler 442b. The Zephyrians are probably all dead. Our ships are probably too weak to make a difference. We will probably die trying to help them, but when someone sends a distress signal, humans answer. It is not about success or failure. It is about who we are." As the hours passed, more disturbing information arrived from Captain Yoon's monitoring position at Kepler 442b. The alien structures were indeed factories, and they were working constantly. New constructions were appearing on the planet's surface, and energy readings suggested that some kind of ships were being built inside the larger structures. Commander Lee presented this information to the Council with growing alarm. The enemy is not just occupying the system, they are turning it into a military production facility. If they complete their construction projects, they will have the capability to attack multiple systems simultaneously. Representative Maul, still grieving for his lost people, spoke with a voice full of pain. "How long do our experts estimate before their production is complete?" "Based on current construction rates," Lee replied, "they could have a significant invasion force ready within 6 standard months." This news made the situation much worse. The Council was not just dealing with an enemy that had destroyed one colony. They were facing an enemy that was preparing to destroy many colonies. The debate began again with more urgency and more fear. It was then that another message arrived from Captain Park. This time, the message included visual communication, showing the human captain on the bridge of his ship. Park was a middle-aged man with graying hair and calm eyes. He spoke in the measured tones of someone who had thought carefully about his words. Galactic Council, this is Captain Park of the Earth Defense Force. I am transmitting from our approach to the Kepler 442b system. I want to clarify our mission parameters so there is no misunderstanding. The council chamber fell silent as Park continued. We are not coming to Kepler 442b to attempt a rescue. Our analysis of the situation, based on your transmitted data, confirms that the Zephyrian colony has been completely eliminated. We are not coming to negotiate with the hostile force, as they have demonstrated no interest in communication. Ambassador Cho felt a chill as she listened to Park's words. There was something in his tone that she had heard before, during the darkest periods of human history. We are coming to Kepler 442b to eliminate the threat, Park said simply. Our assessment is that the hostile force represents an existential danger to all life in this galaxy. Therefore, we are responding with appropriate measures. Admiral Kang stood up quickly. Captain Park, you must understand that the enemy force has technology far beyond your capabilities. Our military experts believe that any engagement would result in the complete destruction of your fleet. Park's expression did not change. Admiral, I appreciate your analysis. However, our own military experts have reached different conclusions. We are proceeding with our mission. What the Council did not know was that the human fleet approaching Kepler 442b was unlike anything they had seen before. The ships looked similar to the vessels that had made peaceful contact with the galaxy 5 years earlier, but they had been completely rebuilt during those 5 years. Human engineers had studied every piece of alien technology they could access, not to copy it, but to understand how to destroy it. The weapons on the human ships were not based on energy beams or kinetic projectiles like most galactic military technology. They were based on principles that human scientists had developed during their species' long history of warfare against each other. Weapons designed not to defeat enemy technology, but to eliminate threats completely. Captain Park, said Representative Thek, surely you can see that this mission is suicide. Your species has so much to offer the galaxy. Why would you throw away your lives for a colony that is already lost? Park was quiet for a moment before answering. Representative Thek, there is something about humans that I think the Council does not understand. We do not measure our actions by their chance of success. We measure them by their necessity. The enemy at Kepler 442b is building weapons to attack other systems. This threat must be stopped. We are the only ones currently in position to stop it. Therefore, we will stop it. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in worried silence. Ambassador Cho stood up to address the assembly. Honored representatives, I want to explain something about my people that may help you understand what you just heard. She moved to the center of the chamber, where the holographic display still showed images of the destroyed Zephyrian colony. Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We survived ice ages, volcanic eruptions, diseases, and predators that were stronger and faster than us. We survived because we learned that sometimes the only way to live is to be willing to die. Commander Lee shook his head. Ambassador, courage is admirable, but it cannot overcome superior technology. You think Captain Park and his fleet are being courageous, Cho replied. But you are wrong. They are not being brave. They are being human, and there is a difference. As the council continued to debate, Captain Park's fleet was already entering the outer regions of the Kepler 442b system. What they found there confirmed their worst fears about the alien threat. But it also activated something deep in human psychology that had kept their species alive through millions of years of dangers. The aliens were not just building weapons. They were building ships designed to spread to other systems and repeat what they had done to the Zephyrians. The threat was exactly what Captain Park had said it was. Existential. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Park studied the tactical displays with the calm focus of a predator that had found its prey. All ships, this is Park. Enemy force confirmed as existential threat to galactic civilization. Rules of engagement are now in effect, total warfare. No prisoners, no negotiation, no mercy. Eliminate all hostile assets. The response from the other human ships was immediate and unanimous. Understood. Total warfare authorized. What the Galactic Council was about to witness was not a rescue mission or a heroic last stand. They were about to see what humans became. when they identified something as a threat to their continued existence. They were about to learn that the friendly species from Sol carried within them something that was older than civilization, older than technology, and far more dangerous than anything in their databases. They were about to discover what humans called war. The Galactic Council had set up monitoring stations throughout the galaxy to watch what would happen at Kepler 442b. Every species wanted to see how the human fleet would handle the alien threat, though most expected to witness the destruction of Earth's entire military force. Captain Yoon, still positioned at the edge of the system in his ship Harmony's Edge, watched his sensors as 12 human vessels emerged from hyperspace. The ships were smaller than he had expected, about the size of Council patrol vessels. They moved in a formation that seemed almost casual, without the defensive positioning that military doctrine required when facing superior enemies. "Captain," said Officer Jin, "the human ships are not responding to our communication attempts. They appear to be maintaining radio silence." Yoon nodded.
"Keep monitoring."
"Record everything. The Council will want a complete report of what happens here." What Yoon did not know was that the human ships were communicating, but they were using quantum-encrypted channels that could not be detected by normal sensors. The conversations happening between the ships would have chilled him if he could have heard them. "Indomitable, this is Defender," came the voice of Captain Kim from one of the human vessels. "Tactical analysis confirms 12 major structures on the planet's surface. Energy signatures suggest weapon platforms capable of orbital bombardment." "Acknowledged, Defender," replied Captain Park. "Retribution, what is your assessment of hostile ship construction?" Captain Lee's voice came from the ship Retribution, cold and professional. "Indomitable. We detect active shipyards inside the larger structures. Estimated completion time for enemy vessels, 6 weeks. Recommendation, immediate elimination of production facilities." "Concur," said Park. "All ships, begin standard threat elimination protocol. Target priority. Production facilities, then weapon platforms, then any mobile assets. Rules of engagement remain total warfare." On Nexus Prime, the Council watched through the monitoring feeds as the human ships approached the alien structures. Admiral Kang expected to see the humans attempt some kind of communication or reconnaissance before engaging. What actually happened made her question everything she thought she knew about warfare. The human ships simply opened fire. There was no warning, no attempt at communication, no gradual escalation. One moment the human fleet was approaching the planet, and the next moment the alien structures were being hit by weapons that defied immediate analysis. The weapons were not energy beams like most galactic military technology. They were not kinetic projectiles like mass drivers. They appeared to be something that converted matter directly into energy at the quantum level, creating explosions that consumed everything within their blast radius. "My God," whispered Commander Lee as he watched the tactical displays from the Council monitoring station. "They're not fighting a battle. They're conducting an elimination." The first alien structure, a massive factory complex that had taken weeks to build, simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, a dark angular building the size of a city. The next moment there was only a crater where it had been. The aliens responded quickly. Ships emerged from the remaining structures, vessels that were clearly more advanced than anything in the Council's databases. They were fast, heavily armed, and protected by energy shields that should have been able to deflect most known weapons. The human response was immediate and devastating. Every alien ship that appeared was destroyed within seconds of emerging from the planetary structures. The human weapons seemed to ignore the aliens' shields completely, reaching through their defenses to eliminate the ships themselves. "How are they doing that?" Admiral Kang asked the monitoring station's technical officer. "I don't know," the officer replied, his voice filled with confusion and fear. "Their weapons shouldn't be able to penetrate those shields. The alien technology is clearly more advanced than human engineering." What the officer did not understand was that human weapons were not designed to be more advanced than alien technology. They were designed to eliminate threats regardless of their technological level. The humans had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of killing things that were stronger, faster, and better equipped than they were. Lieutenant Kim's voice came across the monitoring channels with the mechanical precision of someone reporting routine maintenance. Sector 7 cleared. Proceeding to Sector 8. Estimated time to complete planetary sterilization, 47 minutes. The word sterilization sent a chill through everyone listening. The humans were not just attacking military targets or trying to disable the alien facilities. They were systematically destroying everything in the system that was not a natural celestial body. Captain Yoon watched in growing horror as the human ships worked with terrifying efficiency. They moved in patterns that suggested they had done this before many times. Each ship knew exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to coordinate with the others. "Officer Jin," Yoon said quietly, "are we recording all of this?" "Yes, Captain. Every sensor reading, every energy signature, every tactical movement. The Council will have a complete record." As the minutes passed, the alien structures on Kepler 442b were eliminated one by one. The beings that had destroyed an entire Zephyrian colony, creatures that had seemed unstoppable just hours before, were being systematically erased from existence. What made it even more disturbing was the calm way the humans went about their work. There was no excitement in their voices, no celebration when they destroyed enemy targets. They spoke to each other in the same tones that technicians might use when performing routine repairs. "Indomitable, this is vengeance," came another voice from the human fleet. "Hostile production facility eliminated. Moving to intercept escaping vessels." Park's response was immediate. "Negative, vengeance. Do not pursue beyond system boundary. Our mission is elimination of the threat in this system only." This exchange caught the attention of every military analyst monitoring the situation. The humans were not interested in capturing alien technology or gathering intelligence about their enemies. They were not trying to discover where the aliens had come from or prevent them from warning others of their kind. They were simply eliminating the immediate threat and nothing more. "Admiral." Kang spoke into her communication device, addressing Captain Park directly. "Captain, this is Admiral Kang of the Council Monitoring Force. We are observing your operation. Can you explain your tactical doctrine?" Park's voice came back immediately, calm and matter-of-fact. "Admiral, our tactical doctrine is simple. When facing an existential threat, eliminate all components of that threat as quickly and completely as possible. No survivors, no remaining infrastructure, no possibility of the threat reconstituting itself." "But Captain," Kang continued, "surely you want to capture some of their technology for study, or take prisoners for interrogation?" There was a pause before Park responded, and when he did, his voice carried an undertone that made several species representatives step back from their monitoring stations. "Admiral, with respect, those concerns are irrelevant. This enemy destroyed an entire colony of peaceful people. They then began building weapons to attack other colonies. They represent a threat to the continued existence of life in this galaxy. Our response is appropriate to the level of threat they represent." Within an hour, the human fleet had eliminated every alien structure on Kepler 442b. The planet's surface, which had been covered with dark factories and weapon platforms, was now scarred with craters where those structures had been. No alien technology remained intact. No alien vessels had escaped the system. The threat that had destroyed 43,000 Zephyrians and terrified the entire Galactic Council had been completely eliminated by 12 human ships in less time than it took most species to hold a military planning meeting. Captain Park's final transmission to the Council was delivered with the same calm efficiency he had shown throughout the operation. Kepler 442b system secured. Hostile threat eliminated. No human casualties. Indomitable returning to patrol duties. As the human fleet departed the system, leaving only empty craters where the alien threat had been, the galaxy began to understand that their assumptions about humanity had been dangerously wrong. The friendly species from Sol had just demonstrated a capacity for systematic violence that exceeded anything in galactic history, and they had done it without anger, without hatred, and without any apparent emotional involvement at all. They had simply identified a threat and eliminated it with the same efficiency that others might use to repair a broken machine. The emergency session of the Galactic Council reconvened 12 hours after the human fleet had departed Kepler 442b. The great chamber was filled with representatives who looked like they had not slept. Many species had spent the night reviewing the sensor recordings of what the humans had done, trying to understand what they had witnessed. Admiral Kang stood before the assembly, but her usual confident bearing was gone. She looked like someone who had seen something that challenged her basic understanding of reality. The holographic displays around her showed tactical analyses of the human operation, but the numbers seemed to make no sense. Fellow council members, she began, her voice unsteady. I must report that the hostile force at Kepler 442b has been completely eliminated. The threat to galactic civilization has been removed. The silence that followed was different from the worried quiet of the previous day. This was the silence of beings who were trying to process something that their minds could not easily accept. Representative Maul of the Zephyrians spoke first. Admiral, are you saying that the humans succeeded? That they destroyed the aliens who killed my people? Yes, Kang replied. But Representative Maul, what they did was not just success. It was something else entirely. She activated the holographic display showing the timeline of the human operation, the enemy force that destroyed your colony, that built weapon platforms capable of threatening multiple systems, that our best military analysts estimated would require months of coordinated fleet action to eliminate. The humans destroyed it completely in 53 minutes. Murmurs of disbelief came from around the chamber. Representative Thek of the Altarian Republic stood up. Admiral, surely there is some mistake in the sensor readings. How could 12 small ships accomplish what our combined fleets would have struggled to achieve? Commander Lee of the Andromedan Strategic Response Division moved to the center of the chamber. His pale face was even whiter than usual, and his large eyes held a look of deep concern. There is no mistake in the readings, he said. I have personally reviewed every sensor log, every energy signature, every tactical movement. What the humans did was perfect. He manipulated the holographic display to show the detailed analysis. Their weapons were not more advanced than the alien technology. In fact, from a purely technological standpoint, the aliens had superior equipment, but the humans did not try to match the aliens' technology. They used weapons specifically designed to eliminate threats regardless of their defensive capabilities. The display showed the moment when the first alien structure was destroyed. This weapon converts matter directly into energy at the quantum level. It does not try to penetrate shields or armor. It simply makes the target cease to exist. The aliens' advanced defenses were irrelevant. Representative Zara of the Vegan Confederacy, whose people were known for their wisdom and peaceful nature, spoke with a voice filled with worry. Commander Lee, are you saying that human weapons are designed purely for destruction? Not for defense or deterrence, but for elimination? That appears to be correct, Lee replied. But that is not the most disturbing aspect of what we observed. He changed the display to show the tactical movements of the human fleet. Look at how they operated. No wasted motion, no hesitation, no attempt to minimize collateral damage or preserve alien technology for study. They identified threats and eliminated them with the efficiency of a natural process. Admiral Kang spoke up. What Commander Lee is trying to say is that the humans did not fight a battle. They conducted an extermination. And they did it without any apparent emotional involvement. The word extermination sent a wave of unease through the chamber. Species that had known warfare understood the concept of destroying enemy forces. But what the humans had done was something different. They had eliminated every trace of the alien presence with the systematic thoroughness of beings who had perfected the art of making threats disappear. Ambassador Cho had been sitting quietly during the discussion, but now she stood to address the assembly. The other representatives turned to look at her with expressions that were very different from the day before. Yesterday they had looked at her with pity and concern. Today they looked at her with something approaching fear. Honored representatives, she said, I can see that many of you are disturbed by what my people did at Kepler 442b. You are wondering what kind of species could eliminate a threat so completely and efficiently. She moved to the center of the chamber, standing near the holographic displays that showed the destroyed alien structures. Let me explain something about humans that will help you understand. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Every species in this chamber evolved on worlds that supported life. Your planets gave you food, shelter, and environments where your people could grow and prosper. Earth was different. The chamber remained completely silent as she continued. Earth tried to kill us every day for millions of years. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun. Diseases that killed half our population. Predators that were faster, stronger, and better equipped than us. She gestured to the tactical displays. We survived because we learned to identify threats and eliminate them completely. Not defeat them, not drive them away, not negotiate with them. Eliminate them. Because on Earth, anything that remained a threat would eventually kill us. Representative Maul spoke up, his voice filled with a new kind of concern. Ambassador Cho, are you saying that humans see other species as potential threats? No, Cho replied immediately. We see you as friends, allies, and fellow travelers in this galaxy. But when something demonstrates that it is a threat to innocent life, when something destroys entire colonies and builds weapons to destroy more colonies. She paused. Then we see it as something that must be eliminated. Commander Lee asked the question that many representatives were thinking. Ambassador, the efficiency with which your people operated suggests that they have done this before. How many times has humanity eliminated threats in this manner? Cho's expression became very serious. Commander, for most of our history, the threats we faced were other humans. We spent thousands of years perfecting the art of warfare against enemies who were just as intelligent, just as determined, and just as capable as we were. What you saw at Kepler 442b was not new for us. It was just the first time we had used those skills to protect other species instead of fighting each other. The implications of this statement created a new level of worry in the chamber. The humans had not developed their military capabilities through conquest or expansion. They had developed them through thousands of years of warfare against themselves. They were a species that had survived by becoming the most dangerous thing on their own planet. Admiral Kang spoke the question that everyone was thinking. Ambassador Cho, what does this mean for the rest of the galaxy? What does it mean for species that might come into conflict with humanity? Cho was quiet for a long moment before answering. Admiral, that depends entirely on whether those species represent a threat to innocent life. If they do, then they will be eliminated. If they do not, then humans will continue to be the same friendly, helpful people you have known for the past 5 years. The session continued for several more hours, with representatives trying to understand the implications of what had happened. In the end, they reached a conclusion that surprised everyone, including the humans. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would be immediately admitted to the Galactic Council and appointed to head the new Existential Threat Response Division. The vote was not born of respect or admiration for human courage. It was born of the recognition that in a galaxy full of civilized species, sometimes what was needed was not civilization. Sometimes what was needed was something older, more dangerous, and completely willing to do what civilized species could not bring themselves to do. Captain Park's post-action report, delivered to the Council with the same calm efficiency he had shown during the operation, became part of galactic historical records. Threat neutralized. System sterilized. Recommend immediate deep space monitoring for similar incursions. Humanity stands ready to assist with future existential threats. The distress signal from Kepler 442b had been answered. The Zephyrian colony could not be saved, but the threat that destroyed it had been eliminated completely. The galaxy was safer than it had been the day before. The galaxy was also more afraid than it had ever been. For the first time in galactic history, peace was maintained not by diplomacy or mutual understanding, but by the knowledge that somewhere in the galaxy, there was a species that could eliminate any threat with perfect efficiency and no apparent regret. The humans continued to be friendly, helpful, and eager to participate in galactic civilization, but now everyone knew what lay beneath that friendly surface. Everyone knew that if something threatened innocent life, the humans would respond exactly as they had at Kepler 442b. And perhaps for the first time in galactic history, that knowledge was exactly what the galaxy needed to remain safe, even if it meant that no one would ever look at humans the same way again. Thanks for the story.